Joining the police force in the 1980s, talking about Palm Sanders, she faced racism and sexism at work. Despite that challenge, I should say, she rose through the ranks to become the highest-ranking female Asian officer in the Metropolitan Police. However, new research shows despite legislative change, which I can never say, legislative change, sexism and racism are still prevalent in the British workplace today. Well, we're lucky to have Palm with us this morning. Alongside her is investigative journalist Stuart Prebble, the co-author of Palm's book, Black and Blue. Hello to you both. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning. Palm, if I can ask you, first of all, tell me about why you wanted to write this book.
I thought it was important that I share my experiences because there are people that I would still encourage to join now. And I think it's really important that everyone considers the police service as a viable career. The only way you can make change is to be being part of that organisation.
And Stuart, I mean, obviously very well-known face to lots of journalists and people watching television. Many of our viewers this morning will know of your work. What happened for you to take the time to get involved and help Palm? Why did you want to get involved?
Well, I've known Palm for about 10 years, and you know how it is when people are sort of sitting around the dinner table or chatting and people are telling their anecdotes, and everybody would tell their stories, and then Palm would tell something about her routine life or her early life when she was the child of first-generation immigrants who spoke no English and was into a forced marriage. And there were so many of these things that were just kind of completely jaw-dropping when she would tell them. But she would tell them just in a very matter-of-fact sort of way. And I said to her a number of times, really, you need to write this down. And she would say, well, I'm too busy. And anyway, I don't think I'm all that special. So I said, well, let me help you with that, because this is an extraordinary story that really does need to be told.
What sort of experiences can you share with us, Palm, this morning that have helped shape your career? What sort of discrimination have you had to face?
I can share one of my very early experiences, which was going out on patrol with a fellow officer and being called the P word, and then my fellow officer defending me. And at that time, I thought that was great because I was part of the team, I'd been accepted. But the officer then went on to say, only we are allowed to call her that P word, you're not. So members of the police service were allowed to call me that P word, but not members of the public. And that was back in the 1990s. But then if you bring the clock forward and you move forward to 2018, I was vetted to the highest standard through security service. So I went through that vetting procedure, which was very intensive and very intrusive. And then to get access to New Scotland Yard, to a particular floor in New Scotland Yard, I then got an email to say, can you come and discuss your Indian heritage? And the first question I was asked at that point, and this is 2018, was how often do you go back? At that point, I said, well, what, go back to Handsworth in Birmingham? Is that what you're asking me? But they meant go back to the Punjab, which is where my parents are from. So even though, 30 years have elapsed, that racism, that overt racism is still there. And although I'm not saying that the individual who sent me that email was racist, what I am saying is that the policies and the practices are still racist within the Metropolitan Police Service.
Stuart, I'm just looking at some figures. A quarter of UK adults have been a victim of sexism in the workplace. More than 10% have experienced racism at work, as we heard there from Palm. Are you surprised in 2021 that we're still having to have these conversations?
Well, it's shocking by any standards. And when you think you go back sort of 25 years till the murder of Stephen Lawrence and the Burson inquiry, and if you just look in the period since then, there have probably been 7 or 8 major inquiries, independent inquiries, House of Commons Select Committee of one kind or another. And they all say exactly the same thing, that there's some good intentions and there are some changes of rules and people are trying to learn some better practices. But underneath, there is a permafrost, which is to do with a culture of organizations really being run by middle-aged white men who want to perpetuate the old boy network. And if you have a black or Asian face in the Met, my feeling is, and there are many, many examples that we talk about in the book, if you keep your head down and you don't mind and you put up with daily gratuitous racism or sexism of one kind or another, you can be fine. On the day that you make any complaint of any kind, the system turns against you in a way that really I think most people would find shocking. And this is what happened to Palm, which is one of the things that makes her story so extraordinary. But it's an absolute pattern of behavior that's happened a number of times, and that we talk about in detail in the book.
Yeah, Black and Blue is the new book. Palm and Stuart, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning. Good luck with the book. I'm sure it was incredibly difficult to relive so many of those experiences, Palm, but you were in very good hands with Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Let's take you back to